Good afternoon. I'm proud to be here with my colleagues, pardon me, Parliamentary Secretary Kevin Lamoureux and the Deputy House Leader Ariel Kayadaga. Mesdames et Messieurs, les élections libres et équitables, ainsi qu'une démocratie florissante, sont au cœur de ce qui fait du Canada le pays exceptionnel qu'il est. Lorsque les Canadiens votent, ils le font en sachant que leur voix compte et que nos élections sont sûres et sécurisées. Notre démocratie est solide et reconnue dans le monde entier car nous travaillons constamment à l'améliorer. Nous avons appris de nombreuses leçons importantes au fil des années sur la façon d'y parvenir. Et c'est pourquoi nous sommes fiers de prendre la parole aujourd'hui pour faire une annonce importante afin de protéger notre démocratie. Today, I stand before you to introduce 3 initiatives that will ensure Canada's democracy continues to be among the strongest in the world. First, we are making amendments to the Canada Elections Act. The Canada Elections Act is renowned for its election safeguards, robust political financing rules, and transparency requirements. Part of its strength comes from regular updates and incremental improvements. With the Strong and Free Elections Act, the government is introducing new measures to maintain the strength and resilience of Canada's electoral system. These targeted priority amendments address recommendations from the Public Inquiry into Foreign Interference in Federal Electoral Processes and Democratic Institutions, and also from the Chief Electoral Officer and the Commissioner of Canada Elections. Canada's elections belong to Canadians. Outside money, influence, and threats have no place in them. Our new measures will close channels for anonymous and foreign funding and help protect federal elections, as well as nomination and leadership contests from undue foreign influence and other threats. We also need to face the very real challenges posed by advanced technologies like artificial intelligence. Sophisticated deepfakes have become more and more convincing and dangerous. Our bill will defend against deepfakes and disinformation so that Canadians can trust what they see and what they hear. Aujourd'hui, nous annonçons d'abord que nous apporterons des modifications à la loi électorale du Canada. Nos nouvelles mesures permettront de fermer les voies de financement anonymes et étrangères et contribueront à protéger les élections fédérales ainsi que les courses à l'investiture et à la direction contre l'influence étrangère indue et d'autres menaces. Nous devons également faire face aux défis bien réels posés par des technologies avancées comme l'intelligence artificielle. Les hypertrucages sophistiqués deviennent de plus en plus convaincants et dangereux. Notre projet de loi permettra de contrer les hypertrucages et la désinformation afin que les Canadiens puissent avoir confiance en ce qu'ils voient et entendent. Canadians rightfully expect that all federal political parties will protect their personal information when it comes to the activities they undertake, such as canvassing, fundraising, and polling. That's why our government is adding new requirements for what must be included in the privacy policies of federal political parties. We are also addressing the issue of unduly long ballots, which pose accessibility barriers and are very disruptive to voters, candidates, and election workers. Violating Canada's electoral integrity is a serious act that requires meaningful consequences. And so we are giving the Commissioner of Canada Elections additional tools for effective compliance and enforcement. The next initiative I am announcing today relates to Canada's rapid response mechanism at the Department of Global Affairs. The ability of Canadians to exercise their rights broadly, freely, and safely is at the core of Canada's democracy and sovereignty. Foreign actors are increasingly and continuously attempting to interfere in the exercise of those rights, including through information manipulation. That is why our government is investing $31.5 million over 5 years to enhance the capacity of the rapid response mechanism. The team at Global Affairs works with federal departments and agencies to detect foreign information activities that may impact Canada's interests. Currently, they monitor information only during federal elections, by-elections, and leadership contests for parties that are recognized in the House of Commons. The team also works with international partners to detect foreign information manipulation, interference, and transnational repression aimed at democracies. They have been held up as an international model for addressing foreign information threats while protecting privacy rights and freedom of expression. What I'm announcing today will strengthen the rapid response mechanism's ability to detect and respond to foreign information threats at all times, not just during elections. Et la dernière initiative que j'annonce aujourd'hui concerne le mécanisme de réponse rapide du Canada. Oh, pardon, c'est la deuxième encore. Mécanisme de réponse rapide du Canada au sein du ministère des Affaires mondiales. Des acteurs étrangers tentent de plus en plus fréquemment et de manière continue d'interférer dans l'exercice de ces droits, notamment par la manipulation de l'information. C'est pourquoi notre gouvernement investit 31,5 millions de dollars sur 5 ans afin de renforcer la capacité du mécanisme de réponse rapide. Le financement que j'annonce aujourd'hui renforcera la capacité du mécanisme à détecter et à contrer les menaces informationnelles étrangères en tout temps, et non seulement pendant les élections. Et grâce à ces rapports publics, les Canadiens seront mieux informés, ce qui leur permettra de mieux se protéger, ainsi que leur communauté. And finally, our government is modernizing its tools to protect Canada's democracy by updating the Cabinet Directive on Coordinated Response to Threats to Elections. In 2019, Canada established the Critical Election Incident Public Protocol to ensure coherency and consistency in how we protect elections. We saw the strengths of this approach over the past 3 elections. In last year's election, the government held weekly briefings to inform Canadians about any incidents that could threaten a free and fair election. This was an unprecedented degree of transparency and communication, and it was very positively received. We must continue to be open and to build trust in our democratic systems. To do so, we must keep learning from our experiences. That's why the protocol will be updated. It will implement recommendations from the public inquiry into foreign interference. This includes a process to appoint an individual external to government to be part of the panel. And second, it builds on the best practices of transparency that we have already established to further enhance communications and therefore trust with Canadians. Enfin, notre dernière initiative vise à moderniser les outils du gouvernement pour protéger la démocratie canadienne en mettant à jour la directive du cabinet sur la réponse coordonnée aux menaces visant les élections. À l'avenir, notre gouvernement renforcera la transparence, sensibilisera davantage le public et communiquera plus avec les Canadiens, y compris en dehors des périodes électorales. Together, all of these measures I have announced today reinforce Canada's commitment to free and fair elections and to maintaining public confidence in Canada's democratic institutions. I want to also say that this is, and I want to thank members of the opposition. Obviously, we will have a debate in Parliament with respect to the amendments, but I've worked very, very hard with members of the opposition to make sure that this bill and these measures are as consensual as possible. I do believe that amendments to the Elections Act should be the subject of not maybe total agreement on every word, but a consensus on principles and a consensus, generally speaking, on measures to move forward. And that's why we have formulated a bill that we believe has a grounding in the recommendations of Elections Canada and of the public inquiry into foreign interference, as well as the reflection of multiple interactions with members of the opposition. So with that, Canada's democracy is one of the strongest and most stable in the world, and we, for our part, and I know all parties, are going to work hard to keep it that way. Merci beaucoup.
Democracy, making changes to prevent foreign influence in elections. Is there one particular country or agent that you believe is the greatest threat? Is it Russia? Is it India? Are there other agents that you're really kind of have top of mind when you're making these changes?
Well, I would direct you to Justice Hoag's report and conclusions, where these threats mutate and they pop up. They can pop up all over the world. We do want to make sure that once a threat is identified or interference is identified, that it is called out, that it is dealt with, and that Canadians have all the information they require to understand what pressures are being exerted on Canadian electoral processes and from where, when possible.
Justice O did lay out that China and India are among the top 2 foreign interference state actors, and Canada is currently trying to get better relations with both these countries. Do you expect them to cooperate when it comes to this legislation, when it comes to the Elections Commission, or working with authorities in other countries to root out deepfakes or foreign interference?
I expect that Canada will call out interference in our democratic processes, whatever or whoever the source. I think that from the Prime Minister on down, and I think all elected representatives, we want to work very, very hard to preserve our democracy, to preserve our democratic processes. And whatever the source, we will call it out, and we will work in private with that entity or country or whatever, and work in identifying these threats in public so that people are fully aware of the pressures that people are trying to exert on our democracy.
What message are you sending to longest ballot activists with the measures that you've put in here? They're a pretty feisty bunch.
That the Parliament of Canada finds that to be a harassing behavior. I understand that they have a message that they wish to put forward, but the results of these efforts make, as I said in my earlier remarks, accessibility difficult, make the work of our world-renowned elections agency prohibitively difficult. In fact, we've seen now in the last two of the last by-elections that the Chief Electoral Officer has had to use extraordinary powers to alter the form of the ballot. Citizens do not like this. Elections Canada does not like this. And there are other ways to put forward the message that they, I think, wish to communicate.
The House is sitting
Requirement on political parties to disclose the specific venue where fundraising events happen.
Yes.
These venues often include exclusive private clubs for the wealthy, sometimes corporate headquarters. Don't you think people should have the right to know where that's happening?
We are also seeing where people's personal addresses are published online, harassing behavior that frankly limits their rights and abilities to participate in democratic processes. And as such, this is a security measure.
M. MacKinnon, êtes-vous prêt à aller aussi loin que le gouvernement du Québec et réclamer la démission du PDG d'Air Canada?
Air Canada est une compagnie privée et moi, pour ma part, surtout en tant que ministre des Transports, je laisse les compagnies privées prendre les décisions qui leur sont propres. Moi, ma responsabilité, c'est de m'assurer de la sécurité aérienne et du bon fonctionnement des réseaux de transport au Canada. Mais ce que j'ai dit au sujet de l'enjeu du vidéo de M. Rousseau, c'est que Air Canada, c'est mieux. C'est mieux que ça. Ils ont des obligations solennelles, décidées par ce Parlement, qui sont imposées et qu'ils devraient vouloir remplir de toute manière. Parce que le Canada a 2 langues officielles et les francophones et les anglophones méritent d'avoir des communications pertinentes dans leur langue. Donc, c'est très clair.
The bill cracks down on third parties as well as political parties from accepting cryptocurrency, prepaid credit cards, money orders. How big of a problem has that been in leadership contests, nomination contests in the past?
I think this is more preventative. These are more preventative measures. I know the Commissioner of Canada Elections and Elections Canada generally have made recommendations with respect to political financing. We're trying to be as responsive as we can, but I don't know that I can characterize the problem. I think this is most definitely a preventative measure.
Can you give your answer to the question for Air Canada in English?
Yeah, what I said is Air Canada is a private company, and I believe private companies should make those decisions. But as Minister of Transport, I'm responsible for safety and security, among other things. in the air and in all modes of transport. And that's what I tend to focus on. The Official Languages Act, however, decided upon by this Parliament, imposes requirements, special requirements on Air Canada. They have an obligation to communicate punctually and pertinently with Canadians in both official languages. That is a solemn responsibility and one that I expect that they uphold at all times. They know better, and this has been an important incident in as much as people have recoiled from its lack of sensitivity, especially given that one of the two victims is a francophone.
Will Parliament have time? Will Parliament have time to pass these amendments before these by-elections coming up?
No.
Why? Why did you?
Well,
I mean, you're
because we have 2 weeks before the or 2 or 3 weeks before the by-election.
What priority is this then for you?
Well, you'll see. I'm the government House Leader, so I know a guy who can get it on the who can get it on the order paper.
Debate to be before the by-elections?
Well, we had a public inquiry. I think you would want us to wait for the outcome of that. We've had
the report was a year ago.
yeah, well, indeed, and we had an election not about 10 months ago, and we've had reflections from the Chief Electoral Officer since then. We've had consultations among political parties, as I just mentioned. I think this is actually a very, very quick turnaround in terms of, if you look back over history, of responding to the advancements that we try and make and improvements that we try and make as we learn after every election.
Does it mean that these by-elections will be vulnerable to democratic interference?
No, of course not. We have, as I also mentioned, the capacity that we currently have is capacity that does operate during by-elections. We're now proposing to extend that, if you're talking about the monitoring component, that's a capacity that will now extend 365 days a year, every year.
Can you talk about deepfakes and misinformation? Because that just seems to be a problem that's getting worse and worse and worse. And so, I mean, how do you realistically expect to be able to combat something like that?
Yeah, we do. Again, this is governments around the world are grappling with with AI and the various regulatory and other measures that will be required to deal with AI. In electoral terms, we do think we've come up with a good solution. It is a very serious offense to impute to a public figure words, a candidate, words or actions or something that they did not do. I think once you run for public office, you get a better understanding of that. So it's very, very important that this Parliament send the signal that behavior is strictly prohibited.
Given how quickly this kind of thing moves, what level of confidence do you have that you would be able to actually enforce this before an election period were to run out?
Well, I'm hoping Parliament acts on these amendments with dispatch, and I know that they can be implemented rather quickly.
Law is in place. An election period is a short period of time. We know how quickly disinformation spreads. We know how quickly AI deepfakes spread, and how relatively slowly, in comparison, the investigations are actually happening. So is it your expectation that given what's in this law, you'll be able to stamp out this kind of thing during an election campaign?
Well, that's why our processes are designed to be agile, and that's why we continue to build on this capacity. So the monitoring capability and the cabinet directive interact, and they're part of a government-wide effort to identify this behavior, to call it out, to inform Canadians of it. In the case of those who enforce the rules, that they may take the appropriate behaviors. Look, in the digital, online, social media world, things are happening all of the time. And this is Canada's response to set out the behaviors that we seek to specifically prohibit, put penalties in place to deal with it, and improve our capacity to identify it and inform Canadians of it. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.